All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm Emily Moyer, and Chris and Steve Crimis are with me for, can't remember what number episode this is of Alchemical Insiders. And today we will be discussing the work of Gabriel Keleman. About 6 or 8 weeks back, we did a show on projective geometry and vortices, and that was like a basic sort of lesson to prepare people to look at what we're going to look at today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Gabriel Keleman in just a moment. But before I do that, let's see how the Crimis are. How you doing, guys?
Oh, Emily,
never better.
You know, just being in your presence, we are elevated.
Yeah, I don't know about that, dude.
Elevated from the depths. So good to see you. And good to be here. Yeah.
And I see you've got Masaki's pyramid plugged in.
Masaki's pyramid is going in the background.
Yeah. Times are rough. I'm wearing a double Masaki today.
A double Masaki.
Double Masaki.
Times are rough.
That sounds like a good cocktail drink.
A double Masaki. I think Masaki is like doing a double Masaki, triple Masaki. Masaki's been a little worn out lately, so let's all power Masaki up a little bit here.
All right.
Right.
Power them up.
The pyramid goes both ways.
Both ways, right? So,
right.
Anywho, all right, awesome. Well, let's guys, I'm letting everyone know from the beginning, this is not going to be like a very super smooth kind of regularly produced show because we're going to be into some of this. Maybe it will be, but we have a lot of things to show and to talk about. Some things we'll be in the Patrons hour just because of the kind of content that it is. So I have some things that I'd like to share that I don't know that are supposed to be made publicly available. So I'm going to show to the patrons, but everything else we're going to kind of be pulling things up and looking into things and talking about them. So this is kind of more like a little like live research discussion into Gabriel Keleman. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do. So to start, I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit. I became familiar with Gabriel Keleman last summer when Laura and I did the Vesica Institute's workshop over the summer, and he was one of the presenters. And I was just like blown away. Like it took me a half an hour to even sort of get my bearings and start paying attention.
Is he actually present or it was remote?
It was remote because it was the COVID nonsense, right? But so it was remote. But what was interesting is he just started talking. He didn't tell us what he was going to talk about, who he was or what he did. He just went into
threw you in the deep end of the pool.
Completely, right? Completely. And on top of that, he's from Romania and he speaks quickly and he has an accent. Right. And once you sort of get used to it, it starts to become very charming because he has some cute ways he handles the English language. This gentleman is obviously a genius. I mean, to me, and when you think about who might, really be a high level glass bead game player, this is the guy. Right. Like he's a modern prodigy of that sort, right? Where everything he does has its like mathematical, scientific, artistic aspect to it, right? And he sort of moves between like the different ways of perceiving things seamlessly.
It's not even like he thinks outside the box. It's like he thinks outside the universe.
Completely.
It's like he's just so open.
Yeah, completely, right?
And receptive.
When he's doing his presentation, like I'm making this up. I don't know that this is for sure, but this is the story. This is what I perceived. He has a little room that looks like a college dorm room where he does all of his work from and he sleeps. He's like a very simple guy who all of his mental energy, all of his time and space, all of this is spent working on this. He doesn't bother with a bunch of other stuff,
He's
right?
Like a monk, in a monk cell.
Pretty much. So we were completely blown away, and we've all been talking about doing a show on him for a while, and it's like such a big undertaking that at a certain point it's like, okay, let's just do it, even if it's messy, and see what we get, because I want people to see his work and go take a look and really sit with it for a bit. So anywho, I'm going to tell a little bit about Gabriel Keleman. This is from the Vesica website. Gabriel Keleman is an artist, researcher, lecturer. He's a PhD, artist, researcher, lecturer, and the head of the art history and theory department of the Faculty of Arts and Design at West University of Timisoara, Romania. For over 30 years, he has studied the phenomenon of how stationary waves arise in liquids as they are stimulated by audible sound frequencies. He is a truly pioneering figure in the field of cymatics, experimenting and drawing not only the diverse geometric patterns that occur on the surface of liquids, but also clearly illustrating the complex dynamic forces that generate these intricate and orderly patterns, both experimentally and throughout the vastness of nature. Dr. Kelemen's experiments are performed with the rigor and discipline of a physicist, while his artistic sensitivity brings a playfulness and an inventiveness that often yield surprising results. For instance, his startling three-dimensional cymatic sculptures that mimic complex natural structures such as flowers, biological organisms, and even the human face itself. Focusing particularly on the interaction between the structure of the sphere and the spiral of the vortex and toroidal motions that are fundamental in structure and matter into form, his in-depth studies have led to the articulation of an original theory, the universality of the sphere vortex principle, which has been published as an elaborately illustrated oversized edition by Art Press Publishing House in Romania. Dr. Kelemen's work has garnered much respect in scientific and artistic circles within his native Romania, and his drawings, photos, videos, and sculptures are becoming widely exhibited throughout Europe. This will be his first sojourn across the Atlantic. This was from the first time he presented. So there we go. And I will include, we're going to probably look at it and may read some bits from some of the paper that is attached to the book that they're talking about there. But I also just wanted to show people maybe a little bit of the art that is of his that is shared on the Vesica website, right? Because the rest of the stuff will be saved for the patrons hour. So this is Gabriel. I am screen sharing. You guys can see this, can't you?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this is him, right? With the four lobe shape after my own heart, right? This is him. And,
Right.
you know, so everything he draws like all of the pieces have like one main thing generally in the middle and then several iterations of the same design around it. And he can fully explain to you like both the particle and wave aspects of it and how it developed and how it will sort of undevelop and all kinds of stuff. So here's his leaf. And he does like everything he does, he can sort of scientifically explain, but also draw. And I think that's like a really unusual combination.
So this is the email I sent you.
Yes.
Right. So the top one, just want to, if we're gonna watch one of the videos, this sort of beige one, you can see the morphology of a leaf in the cymatics, and maybe we need just 2 seconds to explain what cymatics is.
Okay.
Because this comes from the work of someone named Hans Jenny, and he was in the 60s, I think, or maybe even 70s. We have VHS videos of his work, so that there were 4 iterations down the line of that technology. But anyway, so you would put what's called lycopodium on what's called a Chladni plate, a metal plate. And lycopodium is what, Chris?
It's a spore.
So it's a spore. So it's a very small spore that would vibrate with frequencies.
It's like a very fine dust.
And what Hans Jenny found, and his videos are fairly easy to find, and what Kelemen has taken to the nth level, is that these spores with certain frequency, they just vibrate in chaos, and then you hit a certain frequency and they come into form. And they'll come into all sorts of forms, mostly in geometric patterns, hexagons, quatrefoils, all that, pentagons, and then also all this sort of almost brain-like invaginations, also like looking like traditional 7-circuit labyrinths, things like that.
If people want a description of what invaginations are, we went into that in our previous video. So I will put the link to that in the description as well, so people can refer back to it, because we described.
You just do a real quick. So like if you have a circle, a sphere, and it starts to morph and move and shape, that's the invagination where my thumbs are.
Right.
So it's a shape that goes inward and then ultimately can break apart and separate. So that's how you get even in geometry. So you start with your circle and then you get your Vesica Pisces, right? If you move, replicate that circle, and it can give you a third. Well, the invagination does a similar thing, only it doesn't do the Vesica, but it can then become independent.
or maintain one thing, but what, and so this is the core of what he's talking about, the relationship between the sphere and the vortex, right? So how one forms into another, and this is, as he says, this is key to understanding or envisioning how form comes about from, from non-form, or how
Yeah.
or is traced from the traceless, from the unmanifest, how the unmanifest comes into the form. So that's the core of everything he's doing, and you understand that principle, or at least recognize that principle.
That our reality is made up of spheres and vortexes, basically.
Right, and the morphology is the
Well,
movement between them.
Yes.
Right,
How the
right,
manifest is made
right.
up
I mean,
of,
we can talk about that later when we get into how this, face appeared.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we talked about plant morphology and the the vortices involved in how plants come in, because it might be a little easier to see. But anyway, so that's what this is depicting. And also the next one, you can see the vortices within the stem, within the leaf. This one looks
So that
like
is the energetic movement. We see a leaf and we just think it's a leaf, but this was
That's
all
right.
the movement that went into the development and the growth and what we see. Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Right, look at all the vortices at the end of the leaf that he's
Yeah.
depicting. Who would have thought of that, right? So,
Yeah.
Right.
not only does he depict these, but he obviously sees them. He sees them within
Right.
himself, within his own inner vision. He
And-
must see these.
Rudolf Steiner would call those the formative forces.
Well, what's interesting is like these are like when I talk about all of these visions that I had, and whatnot, this is what I was seeing. I don't think I understood when I first started seeing them. Like I thought I was seeing first I started seeing mandalas, and then I started seeing sacred geometry, and then there started to be motion to it. But it was a long time before I really understood that that was what everything was made of, including myself, that I was
Isn't that
basically
wonderful?
remote viewing my own biochemical and neurochemical sort of processes, and the way that my energy was moving through the body as I was dancing. I was literally remote viewing my motor, by the way I worked or whatever, right? So
Right. And two things before we move on. One,
yeah,
do you kind of recognize that shape of the base of it, that basic shape?
this
Something
one,
that you, no, the one above it. This
This one.
whole, yeah, doesn't that look a little bit like something that you just talked about?
With Michael Wan.
which I've done so many shows with Michael Wan at this
Well, the
point.
one you just
And
put up,
Howie.
it's the what it looks to me
Oh,
like the
yes.
chip you were talking about.
Mayflower.
Yes, it does. I mean, it has this sort of piercing, right, kind of thing, like it's going to puncture into some other space
Yeah.
type thing. Absolutely, it does. Yeah, it does look like that. It is a similar sort of, yep. All right. So tell people what this one is. So we're going to just go through. I have a bunch of emails that you sent me.
Well,
So I think,
it actually doesn't matter, it doesn't really have to be organized, because
Perfect.
the more you loop around, because you can deepen each time. So he tells this story. So he says he got started as a child was a young person anyway, with a microscope.
Mhm.
And he would put these powders on a microscope glass, and then look into it, and vibrate them. He had like one of those old-fashioned oscillating frequency things. So that's how he would do it. And eventually he reached the point with more sophisticated stuff, where he'd do various oils and things like that. And then some of the stuff he does, I'm not even sure what it is. When we get to the videos, they're just glorious. Whether they're the powders or whatever he's using. But anyway, he did one, and this one frequency came up as a pentagon type shape. And and he said he left it alone, and he came back, whether it was a day later or something like that. I guess he just left it running, and he came back, and this face was there. And
Yeah.
and we have he puts these up. He has a whole bunch of things on Vimeo. You can see he's got like 30 or 40 of these, like 40 second cymatics videos.
Right. So this face that's actually a drawing here in static, he had, it's a living, moving, vibrational event
yeah.
that he actually did
Right.
in his laboratory.
So this face has obviously captivated him, because it Right. And so, yeah, so this is interesting because the face is really of a 3, but though it came out of a 5.
Yeah.
So I'm not too interested, but it's very triangulated. There's something very ancient about it.
Totally. And also
Like,
something very modern. Like look in this part down here, there's
yeah.
like he circled it even. You can see there's like a regular looking eye.
That's
Mhm.
right.
Right. Like,
That's right.
so what's fascinating about this to me is, and I just talked about this with at both Conspiracy Talks and with Michael. This looks like a fidget spinner. There's these toys.
I was saying that to Steve. Yeah.
Right? This looks like a fidget spinner that have become popular toys again recently. But then the other thing, like anybody who's had any sort of psychedelic or any visionary experiences know, you see faces and things. Like you suddenly, like you'll be looking at geometric stuff or whatever, and then suddenly you start to see like a face start to emerge, and then it recedes and whatnot. But what I was interested in was over here, you have part of a Jewish star, right? And what was so interesting was like the last psychedelic experience that I had, like and it wasn't just me, other people who were there as well. We were seeing a lot of Jewish symbolism, including these 5-pointed Jewish stars and menorahs, right? Kind of thing. And, you always see these kinds of shapes and faces, but it's kind of interesting because I had never thought of this shape as being somehow part of the basic makeup of faces, right? And so like, we have a very idea of like, okay, the Jewish star is like a religious or the Israel thing or whatever the fuck people think it is, right? But a lot of these things that are presented to us as symbols of certain religions, places, countries, time periods are probably really just the geometry of our own bodies and faces.
That's right.
Right. And
yeah.
Just curious whether, if you remember, did you see the menorah as a traditional 7?
So what it was looking like to me, it was this very pretty blue color, an interesting blue, not quite your usual like blue associated with Hanukkah. It had a different tone to it. I think it was 7. It was an uneven number. I think it was 7. 1, 2, 3. It might have been 7 or 9. I don't remember. But what it was showing me was it looked like some kind of piece of ancient technology, but also like what was being shown to me was that this pattern was used in a lot of things that we don't know, like that we don't pay attention to. And it was showing me like crates that like plant. You know how they use those like little cardboard crates to start like planting seedlings and stuff like that, right? Or when you get a box that has some piece of technology or piece of like an appliance for your kitchen, there's like you're in the box and then there's like the cardboard crate on the bottom and the top that holds it in, right? It was like showing me that like that we have all of these things that actually have this like menorah shaped design in it that we don't even recognize that that's what it is. Like when things come with like cords wrapped around it. It was the weirdest thing. I mean, this was not any part of anything I was thinking about. So you just take what comes, right? But it showed me that the menorah is not just simply some sort of Jewish religious symbolism.
It's actually because the menorah is very interesting. Number one, it's a 7, right? Yeah. 7, like if you cannot draw a heptagon accurately, there are ways to approximate it. But a 7-sided star you cannot draw.
Right.
Like you can draw a 6-pointed star perfectly.
Right.
So the 7 is considered the number of Athena or the goddess, and it's the interface between the manifest between the celestial and the earthly. Because it doesn't make it through. And then other thing about the menorah is, and this is Rudolf Steiner does talk about this in terms of world ages, but there's a bunch of ways you can look at it. The 7, of course, a group of 7 is everywhere, right? But the 1 and the 6 are connected.
Yes.
The 1 and the 7 are connected. Right. The 2 and the 6 are connected. The 3 and the 5 are connected.
And the 4 is right in the middle.
4 is the pivot upon which those. And so you look at world ages, like whatever he says, the antecedent to this age that connects to in the past is the Egyptian age, according to these esoteric teachings, that somehow whatever's going now is a reflective or an inverse of what went on in Egypt, and so
totally
that with the pyramids and all that sort of stuff. So that's you know, that's one part of it, you know,
So it's
that
a
I got a little grasp on.
What was interesting, what you said about the Athena and you said something about the celestials and the earthly. What did you say about it?
Well, it's an interface
interface.
between them.
Right. So what was interesting, so this is fascinating. We were there in Joshua Tree to watch the Saturn Jupiter thing in the sky, right? That was it. The Grand Conjunction, right? So we were there to do this, and we're in Joshua Tree where you go to observe the celestial, right? And so I was seeing this menorah sort of then. So this process you described in this 7 of Athena as being the interface between the earthly and the celestial, like that was the experience that we were having. So it's not surprising that the menorah would show up.
Right.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, because the reason, because 7 is the only number in the decad, the 1 through 9, that you cannot multiply to get it, nor does it multiply to get any place else. That's why it's you know, it's considered of a divine nature.
That's why lucky number 7 and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And the 7-year itch. And our don't we regenerate new cells every 7 years? Like we have an entirely new body every 7 years. So yeah. All right. Very interesting. Let's just kind of continue down this through this email, so we're not hopping around too much. So on.
Yeah, and I don't think it's that you can't draw it. It's that you can't draw it to perfection.
Right.
To
Right.
accuracy.
You can just approximate
Just
it. So
to be
this is
clear.
another face with you know, toroids where the upper chakras might be.
So
this one almost looks wooden.
Yeah.
You know, and again, these also are very reminiscent of, you know, Aboriginal masks of some kind.
Yeah.
Also, if you look at the markings on the chin, yes, it looks like the Aboriginal tattooing on the skin.
Right.
You go down to the chin area. Maori.
Yeah.
Doesn't it though?
Totally.
Yeah, right. They do all those lines of force on their face to.
They're wearing their cosmology when they do their tattooing.
Yeah.
Well, completely. Like when we are like whenever we do mushrooms, Laura says I turn into an Aborigine, and she sees all of these geometries, lines on my face, right? You know, and she says like I see a few things on her face. She says she sees some little things on other people, but that mine has like a ton of it, right? And that it lights up like technology. It looks like it's some sort of wiring or technology or something like that.
Like luminescent. Hi, Laura.
Yeah.
It is like that Menorah blue. Right?
She says it's the same color as the Menorah blue.
Oh yeah, sure. Like neon, like kind of lit up.
Right. And then and all these people also, they do that drawing on their face before either going to war or before going into ritual.
Yeah.
To draw on that power.
Also, didn't the Picts actually dye their skin blue?
The ancient Ticts.
The
Picts in Scotland.
Yeah, so they would paint their faces blue when they're going into battle.
They scared the bejesus out of the Romans. That's why they built the wall. That's where the Romans said, "All right, we stop here.
So that
we ain't messing with these fuckers."
Well, maybe we could resurrect some ancient technologies today.
Yeah.
So look at this.
Yeah.
What's interesting is some of these guys you see around that have like tattoos on their faces and piercings in their ears and their head shaved and stuff. And it's like a, you know, like a punk rock kind of thing or whatever. It's going back to this very primitive.
I guess they call it primitivism of some sort, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's an art thing, but yes. And I thought this one was very cool. So where he drew this within the hexagon, the hexagon, like you brought up before, the so-called the Star of David.
Can you move that page up any higher, like the page itself? Like go up to the top bar and just pull it up. No.
So most of these pictures that you're showing right now, when we go into the second hour and I can share what I have these in a size that'll be easier to see.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just at the bottom is cut off.
And we do have the and like I said, we do have the cymatics video. But this one's interesting because this is one of the real basic sacred geometry arrangements.
Yep.
The 6 around the 1.
Yep.
So in other words, six spheres fit exactly around a single sphere.
Yeah.
And then the next if you want, it works both ways, and then another 12 fit
Yeah.
around that. And so you always have the 12 around the 6 around the 1. The 12 around the 1, of course, is ubiquitous, and it's Jesus, 12 disciples, the 12 imams, 12 knights of the round table, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
But also it works this way in 3D. So if you take that 6 around the 1 and then you put them in making a circle in 3D, and it works the same way, you still get the 12 around the 1 in 3D.
Yep.
So this again is the fundamental, another fundamental geometric procedure. But it's kind of interesting. Not only are the eyes, kind of where they should be, but there's also some eyes right under that.
Yep.
Much more subtle that he's putting in there.
Yep. Yep. All right. So then here we have, what do we got here?
Where?
Here.
Oh, this
Well,
one.
that one, I don't know. That one was something else, but I saw the face in that.
Yeah.
As I saw it, and again, so this is much more abstract and primal, but it's kind of the same thing.
So it looks like a seed pod, but it also looks like a cephalopod,
Yeah.
and it looks like a mushroom. shape of that.
Mushroom.
So that top left, if you look at that inside the sphere, that mushroom shape, where the cap is and the swirling on each end is called an Overbeck jet
Mhm.
form that you find all over in nature.
Mhm.
Nature,
Yeah,
in the
from ram's horns to Doric columns and
mushroom,
Doria.
Doric
No,
column.
Interesting.
that
to
Ionian.
me.
I forgot Ionian maybe.
It's interesting to me, and part of the larger metaphysical doctrine of signatures. We're not sure what this is, but in all of these sort of vortex to sphere things he showed the Invagination, at some point you see something that looks like a mushroom and you see something that looks like a face, right?
Mhm.
And
That's
so, right, and so, and of course, when you do mushrooms, you see faces and everything, right? And so it's kind of interesting that like that is the basic doctrine of signature that shows up in almost everything, right? So it's at the core of no matter what thing he's drawing, you can find this sort of little, like what looks like a button mushroom shape in it and a face somewhere, right? So it's
Right.
bizarre.
Right.
Yeah.
And those, well, because those, especially the mushroom form, is much more primal.
Yeah.
And also is another twist I just thought of, is that the line that we're made in God's image.
Right. Well, and then you have Smurfs where they're living in mushrooms, right?
Hmm.
Kind of thing, and they have the mushroom hats on that they're wearing and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
Comical hat.
if you listen to Paul Stamets, who also wears a
Right.
mushroom hat, he says that there is much more in common between mushrooms and humans, mushrooms and animals, than there are between mushrooms and plants.
Right.
That the fungus is closer to an animal or a human nature than it is to other plants, right?
Mhm.
Right.
All right, what do we got
So
here?
this one I thought you'd love. So this is the octave forming proteins.
Yep.
I have zero idea what to make of it. It's almost like a musical instrument of some kind. They all like one of those things that Robert Flood used to
a
draw.
pipe organ or
Yeah,
something.
like Robert Flood used to draw, but in his own way. So he's got all these signatures on the notes.
Well, I mean,
Right.
this goes to like weren't we talking about like the music of genetics, the music of DNA? There's like some connection between DNA and genetics and music. So I think this is.
So if you go back down a little bit, scroll back down. So what about you?
Protein.
Go back to the keys, to the keyboard. Right. So I think that's what Steve was pointing out. Above the numerical designations, you've got these what appear to be varying stages of sine waves. So is that then the signature of each note?
They look almost like biosignatures,
Right.
or they may be biosignatures.
There's like a technology or an instrument or something that you can run genetic sequences through and it will make music. Is that that's what you told me, right? Yeah. So it would be interesting to see for like, you know, like each person has their own song, right? Like if you run somebody's genetic sequence through this thing, everyone's song should be unique. The geometry that it vibrates should be unique, right? So
Right.
Now I'm curious, what do you both think if you could still stay on the keyboard, but
Okay.
just a little bit above the keyboard?
okay.
Okay. What do you suppose? Stop there. Well, what do you suppose these groups of 3 spheres each are indicating? And what do you suppose this, which almost looks like the cut off trunk of a tree, or who knows what, or maybe,
That's weaving the music.
but what's going on here? He's got these, what appear to be chemical signatures above,
Mhm.
and arrows
Right.
flowing down into this trunk, like, and then spreading out with their filaments to each of the keys on the keyboard.
Okay, so I think this
Best
is
guess.
all right. So I see the groupings of 3 as maybe just like DNA or RNA, right?
Okay.
Okay, I'm just that's or something like that, right? And this is like this is kind of like a hand, 4 fingers, 5
Right.
the thumb, right? Or this could be the pinky and that could be the thumb, and it's like like weaving, right? Like weaving the keys. It looks, if you ever look at the inside of a piano or
Like
a
warp and woof.
organ, right? So I think what this is, so like Jeff and I, when we were down a certain rabbit hole for certain things, like there is multiple ways to achieve the same thing, right?
Right.
So when you're trying to make something happen, there's like the chemical compound, right? And the chemical compound has a geometry to it, which you can see up here.
Mhm.
So you can mix the chemicals in a petri dish, or you can draw the geometry of something, or you can create sound which vibrates this geometry into existence. And all of these things create are equal, right? So like there's like right, so it creates the same essential frequency and vibration. Whether you draw it, within that drawing, that vibration is created. If you put all the chemicals together, they emit a vibration. If you play music, that creates the geometry, that vibration is the same. So it's like a multiple ways to accomplish basically the same projective or projected geometry, or to emit the same frequency or wave. And it's showing how science is music.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
That there
Okay.
not that, right, that like this
Chemistry is music.
chemistry is music, like if it,
Is
and,
it- you've
and
got
my guess
chemical-
would be if it does not, if the compound does not sound harmonic, it's probably not good for us.
Very good.
Right.
Very
Perfect.
good.
Perfect.
Very good.
Right. So what I'm seeing also is that it's moving from the chemistry into the music, and then back out as something I'm not quite sure. Are those also proteins?
So I mean,
because he's written proteins down there.
Right.
so these are the building blocks of
Like amino
protein.
acids.
I mean, are the amino acids, fatty chain acid, all these things are the things that like proteins are made of, correct?
Mm-hmm.
This looks like cell division to me.
Well, there's also that, right? So there's cell
What you
division.
said?
So there, it, like what we were talking about earlier, there's also this idea of cell division, right? Because
Right.
here it goes into this many,
Right.
right? So we're talking about morphing and changing and whatnot. It's all just different arrangements and iterations of the same basic components, right? And eventually, when it's rearranged itself enough times from this that it was started to be made of, right? Like there's this musical process that happens between arranging the building blocks and having them morph into something that we recognize as meaningful.
It's like a Tutford chart.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
way. So if you go down below, so this serpentine shape, which looks like an earthworm,
Yeah.
then contorts just below itself. Just
Yep.
go back. Yeah. So just below itself, and you've got the arrows pointing, well, it went this way and it went this way and it went this way.
Yeah.
And look here, it was compressed, compressed, compressed.
Right.
Yep.
And we kind of got into that last time too, with the formation of the heart from a
And then the
flat,
spin.
into
Yep.
a vortex.
These are
And
all
Chris
the
is gonna
different
show
ways.
later.
These
We're
are
going
all
to do a
the,
demonstration.
this is all the different ways you can arrange this. right? You can lay it out flat. If you open it, we'll do it one way. You can wind it up like this. You can turn it into a perfect vortex or spiral.
Good old tapeworm.
Yeah, totally. All right, here we go. What do we got here?
Good question. I just was taken with this one because it looks
Yeah.
like so many things, right? It looks like the brain. It looks like lungs. It looks like a human.
Right? Looks like a
Yeah.
woman.
You know, there's just so much going on. And again, it's almost like this on the sides of it, especially on the left side as we look at it, looks like almost like chemical compounds coming out, little groupings and things like
So
that.
it's like this shows the extent of our fractal nature and our the like sort of doctrine of signature, like almost like within every organ of the human body, you can find something that looks like a person,
Right.
right? And they're all made up of these tiny, like all these things go together. Like this is like the great fractalization of a person, right? Each thing the person is made up looks like a small version in some level of the whole.
The what do they call it? The homunculus?
Right? Like even here, like you have like the 5, like the head, right arm, right leg, left leg, right? That would be like the 5 circles arranged kind of thing. I mean, you know, there's all of these different ways to perceive the same thing. And like, there's nothing that's not part of it, and there's nothing that's not it.
Right, right. So yeah, on the top, and the very top where we just were, those almost look like fetuses.
Yep.
And you've got the sphere and the vortex within the sphere.
Yeah, that's curious.
So that's
isn't
coming in and informing this whole process.
Well, then you can see the importance of the.
There's already this very developed face on this little area. Yeah.
Right.
But you can see the importance of the north and south poles.
Yeah.
Because they're vortices.
They're vortices, right? But I mean, think about it. So you have the vortices, and then you have sort of the big round structure in the middle, right? Like I think the Earth is really more like that. Like it's a toroidal shape, right? With the you know, sort of vortices at the top and bottom. And then generally there's also like there's areas that are linear through here that can be perceived as flat or disc-like or whatever, right? So this is where we get like, it's not like flat or round or toroidal. It's all three. Like it depends on like the axis, how you're looking at it, right?
So then that begs the question, if the Earth is toroidal, is it tubular in the middle?
I think it is.
Open?
Yeah, I think there's some sort of energetic pathway here, right?
So they talk about Admiral Byrd going in and down in, right?
And that's where space is.
The great battle.
Space is in there, right? The thing that we think of as space as being spread out all around us in the sky is actually in that area in the middle, right there, like the great central sun or whatever it is, right? And all the things sort of, you know, I think that's we have these omnidirectional toroidal things that kind of create something around it, but there's this area in the middle, and I think the area in the middle is where time doesn't actually exist.
Oh,
well, you know, and it's very interesting.
Well, that's the middle of the hourglass. Yeah.
Right. And that's the last teaching of Socrates before he takes the hemlock. He tells the story of that we're inside the earth and what it looks, you know, what we think is the sky. We're actually inside a cavern within the earth.
Yeah.
And that on the surface is where the true earth is.
Yes, probably. Yeah.
And that's his last teaching before he drinks the hemlock.
Sounds good to me.
You know?
All right. So what we got here?
And that I brought up because there's one of the Cymatics videos replicates this exactly. So this is called the Giant's Causeway on the shore of Northern Ireland. And these you know, mostly hexagonal basalt structures, and you can see above they project upwards on the top of the painting, top of the photo. You know, they almost like they rose up, you know, like in like the first Superman movie where he drops the crystal in, and then
so this is a picture of yours that you're showing us because it demonstrates.
No, it's not ours.
It's not ours. A picture I found that correlates exactly with one of the
videos we will watch.
Videos.
Although I think we missed the boat on that one. We were right there in Belfast. We
were, it
didn't go there. We should.
It was a day trip, but
all right.
I don't know what else I got. And this one I just thought was really interesting also. And again, it's one of these big process ones
But this is what they should, when they try and explain Earth or planets to us, sometimes they show us things like this, but they don't
Right.
ever show these aspects of it, right? So it's
right.
interesting,
So yeah,
right?
so
They just
right,
show,
these look
oh,
like,
here's the core and here's the mantle and the crust and this
That's
is the
right.
cross section and whatnot, but they never explain this process.
Because they don't know it.
Well, because
Yeah.
the deal
They
is
don't know
Why
it.
they can't.
there
They
is
don't know it.
there is no physical Earth out there. There's only the Earth that we live,
Yeah,
each of us individually, and that's why all these various kinds of Earths can exist.
right.
Right? Because it's just our experience, and our experience can either be circumscribed by, you know, science and everyone teaching us, or it can be opened up by psychedelics. And really all we have are these possibilities for various narratives that all can exist at the same time.
Yep. No, that's exactly right. All right. And then,
And this is his sculpture, which is just, you know,
Oh, is it? I had
so
not
that's
seen
3D
that.
versions of his
Oh,
drawings
really?
in
Yeah.
a certain sense.
I like the red
but I
one.
like that you said it looked like the bar scene in Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah, very good. That's Steve. Yeah.
You know, it's really idiotic, but you know.
Now this I
Here.
recognize. This is one
Now
of
this
ours.
is this one we took, and I guess because you have talked about this in the past, and it's hard to get this because the picture is kind of big for the. I don't know if you can go to the left, but what it is within, in other words,
Yeah,
when I
right.
was this is the scene
Right
around
there.
Göbekli Tepe.
Right there.
Okay.
Right, which is the ancient 12,800-year-old site right at the end of the last ice age. There
And
you
we're
go.
actually looking out into Syria
So right, so
at that
that's
point. It's right on the Syrian
so
border.
you're looking out into Syria, and Göbekli Tepe. The site is behind us. This is part of the hill. But I had
Yeah, it's like it was swirling in motion and then it just got
Right.
stuck or frozen. Yeah.
right. I
see.
had this vision that this was formed. Yes, exactly. So this was all vortex, molten vortex
Yeah.
of some kind, and it like froze into place instantly. It's just a vision I
Yep.
had while I was standing there.
Yep.
So this is a picture I had of that, just showing again this sort of formative vortex action.
All right. So let's go through now and look at some of his videos because some of these things that we have, pictures you have shown of yours are kind of like frozen images of these processes he's going to show. Right. And all right. So let's just, these are all really short videos. So let's
Yeah.
flip through them here. So, all right. This is the leaf.
Oh, isn't that gorgeous? It looks like looks to me like a beautiful silver sugar bowl.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, and you can see ice do this. You know, if you lived in a place that had ice, Emily, you could see this on your windows.
So he basically takes like he makes the solutions of certain chemical compounds, powders, and liquids and oils, and then he puts them on his cymatics plate and vibrates them.
Yeah.
Right, and he's looking for. So he's not, so he's gone through the standing waves, of traditional cymatics,
Right.
but he's looking for this sort of interface between the standing waves and chaos.
Okay, so here's,
which is where things form.
All right, so here's the Invagination morphogenesis.
Right. So again, yes, so these singular lines of force curl and then begin to create these other forms, and you can see this, with the brain.
All right. Let's see what else we got here. Okay. The brain. So the meandering, he talks a lot about meanders and meandering, and it took us probably an hour into his presentation to figure out that was what he was saying, was meanders or meandering. We couldn't figure out what he was saying. But because he's like another famous Romanian, Bela Karolyi, who also makes up his own words sometimes, right? But can you explain to people what meanders or meanderings are?
So meander, you find the meander in all traditional cultures, right? And sometimes it just looks, sometimes it's in a square, but it's taking a line, and then again, these movements of force bring it into another form. So you're moving from one dimension into another. So in other words, how do we get our brain? How does our brain form, where it's just starting with cells and they're just kind of hanging around? Well, it's just again, I think it's how the sphere and the vortex work together. In other words, the vortex is moving things in this direction, right? And then it folds against itself, because you have, so then the creation.
So the interplay between the sphere and the vortex is the meander.
Right. And so what happens is, and I just realized this as I was speaking. So as you're making one, it folds, and then you have another vortex. So the actual meander itself generates more vortices.
Okay.
That go into each time you make a turn, then there are more vortices that contribute to more vortices.
Okay.
And then there has to be, there has to be a plan behind it to get, a brain, or, a form.
So it's kind of like a self-organizing series of like movements and geometries, right? That is
Right.
both generating.
Yeah, go ahead.
I always think of meandering as a wandering. The
Right.
word that comes to
Yeah,
mind
like I
to me
meander around the house, whatever, right? Yeah.
is to wander. And so it's the movement of life. You could say it's the ritu, it's the rita, it's that flow, the river flow of life that is constantly moving.
So, but
It's
there
in
also
constant motion.
seems to be some sort of order or geometry behind it, because it ends up
There can
creating
be,
this.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, also, you'll see it in Islamic art in what they call the arabesque design.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you get those beautiful swirls, and they have these beautiful floral patterns.
Yeah.
Usually curl around and around and around, and then they go this way and this way. And they call that arabesque. And there's a particular way to draw that geometry.
Okay.
And there are some wonderful YouTube videos that you can find that will show you how to do that. But that's how I think of it as well.
There's also a ballet stance or position or pose called.
That's right. That's right. The arabesque.
But the magic in it is that this is a process, but everything is different. Everyone is different. We're all snowflakes, and all the snowflakes are different. I mean, but so there's a magic in this form. So the form doesn't replicate itself fully, right? So that's, in other words, you wouldn't need, and I'm not sure what gives everything its difference, but you can see just there's a living aspect to all of it, right? That makes everything different, and that because nature, we'll just call it nature for now, does not want to replicate itself. What's the point?
Yeah.
It doesn't want to hit the same note in the octave. It wants music.
Yeah.
But you can also see then in why are certain things attractive to us? Why is ballet arabesque attractive to us?
Right.
There's a lock and key mechanism going on. There's a resonance going on, a recognition of our fundamental structure that's being exposed when a ballerina does.
When a ballerina moves a certain way, it makes you think of a flower or a lovely day.
Well, it doesn't even it may make you think of it, but
right.
You are responding to it on a very fundamental level, that there's a resonance goes on. There's a recognition of something that's very familiar to you. You
so that's kind of
this.
The same way we talked about, you could make the same resonance by drawing it, by chemical compounding it, by playing it and whatever. So the movement of the body is another way to achieve that resonance of familiarity or pleasure or whatever you're attracted to.
Yes. And it's a recognition. You recognize it. So it is attractive to you.
Yeah.
So
it reminds you of something else or whatever, of something that you already know.
Sometimes it's not even on a cognitive level.
Yeah.
It's let's call it pre-linguistic.
Yeah.
So it's on a more of a heart level than an intellectual level.
Yeah.
So you are connecting with it on that level, a level of being, of a level of knowledge.
Yeah.
I also,
It's a knowing.
yeah, and I also thought of also the meander is also, you know, the ancient traditional dances like the snake dance and things like that.
Okay.
That people have been enacting for millennia. Now you're dancing it and you're not seeing what's going on, but if you were on a cliff top looking down on it, you would see the geometric shape that those dances form.
Yeah.
And then
Like
you
the was it the dancers from the Jackie Gleason show, the June Taylor dancers are all cameras looking down and the
Oh,
legs are doing this, that, and the other, creating all these shapes.
right. In the water,
Yeah, that too, the water ballet.
the water ballet, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, let's go back to the videos. Let's get back to the videos. All right, here we go. So the next one will be, this is the brain. We already looked at the brain meander, didn't we?
Yeah.
No, we didn't. We didn't. We didn't. We talked about meander, so we didn't look
Yeah,
at the
so this is similar to the last one, I
Gotcha.
think.
Okay.
So for him, he's pulling. These are his titles.
Oh yeah, didn't we just look at this?
No, we looked at the rainbow one.
little
Oh,
different.
we did, okay.
But you can see in this movement all of those things he draws. So his drawings are really so accurate representations of what he's viewing in the
Right.
microscope or the whatever. he's
It's really
doing.
interesting because in that one you had the invagination on the left, and then
Yeah.
there was like the sperm on the right, the
Yeah.
little wormy things. And he said that was one of the first things that he noticed when he was a young one
Yeah.
doing those experiments with his microscope. He
Yeah.
started seeing those little worm formations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
there were quite a few of them. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so here's the spiral convection. And this looks like some of the pictures you showed us, Steve.
Right. This formation into a spiral. So yeah, I love this one.
Yeah.
Again, he's got you just look Gabriel Keleman and Vimeo. I think he's got about 30 or 40 of these short videos, a couple of longer ones.
He had one that they played at the thing that was longer, that was like set to music kind of thing.
Right. I think that's, I also have this on here, but it's 7, 8 minutes. I don't know if you want
Yeah.
to play it.
Well, no,
But isn't that amazing?
I won't play it, but we will link to it in the description so people can watch it and have that full.
Good, yeah, because that's like an overview one, and it's pretty nice.
Yeah. All right. So here's the human face.
This one has sound, I believe. He doesn't do the sound on all of them.
It also looks like the Phantom of the Opera. Right?
Very fast.
All right. So that one's pretty cool. Let's look at then. Steve even did some quatrefoils for me.
In honor of Emily's love for the four
Quatrefoil.
dimensions.
Quatrefoil loves me. Everywhere we go now, there's a quatrefoil everywhere. Yep.
There's a nice golden one, and there's pulsating
Yep.
between separation and connection. And what you see, and also there's two, and the next one especially is the movement not only from the sides to the center, but from the sides to each other.
Yep. All right. So now we have a
You
Venus.
don't usually think of with the
Yeah.
quatrefoil.
Yep. All right. Here we go. This one looks like a party. So cool.
Yeah,
So
you
this-
just stick a beat onto that, Emily, and you'll be in business.
All right. And then we have some other cool stuff. So this is the 6-minute Genesis video. I
Right.
will attach that. We don't have time for that one right now.
Yeah. So this one's called a ring portal, so
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
I mean, this is what this looks like, a head-on view of a particle accelerator, which we think of as the portals and moving through to other dimensions
Right.
and stuff.
And you've got these rings, and it's both, like looking down.
Very psychedelic. It also provides that shimmer that we've associated with like some of this interdimensional travel that we've been talking about this a lot in like the Project Kids group, the cafe and stuff like that, that whenever there seems to be an anomalous sort of temporal or spatial kind of event, there's a shimmer sort of associated with it, right?
Right. That's the shimmer of the liminal.
The shimmer of the liminal. I like that. Right. All right. So we got silver pentagon.
Right. So that's this one shows the more traditional, you know, pentagonal geometric shapes.
Yep.
And again, you know, so even though it appears static, there is movement creating these shapes. It's a continuous renewal. You know, it's dying and renewing itself continuously to make that shape.
Yep. It's the Ouroboros, basically, right? Like this sort of, yeah.
Okay, sounds like our new generator.
You must not have gotten the Honda then. All right. So, and then there was one more, and these
One
are
more, yeah. The last one that goes along with the
your picture.
yeah. I just thought there was a great connection.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I love that. So he's just showing in his microscope exactly how those rocks, which you have the picture of there, were formed.
Right.
It was a
Right.
moving system, and then something happened and it solidified.
Right.
Mhm.
Also reminds me of those certain temples in Peru with these asymmetrical, you know, fittings of stones that no one can quite, you know, fathom.
Yeah.
How they quite make it to each other, or, you know, who put them in. Why would you make them, you know, in all these odd shapes that fit together?
Absolutely. All right. Some of these are pretty.
These are actually, these are just I sent to you for fun. These are our
those
pictures
two
from
pixelated.
Göbekli Tepe.
All right. Very good. Oh,
The standing stones.
there we go. You guys like any chance to throw in some pictures from Turkey and from
That's it. That's it.
I love it. Okay.
That's our Ur. Well, that was our first date.
All right. And then
Very
there was
good.
this cool picture that you sent. And since you included that, let's hear about this and then we'll wrap up. There's a whole bunch. Okay, there's just two. And then we'll wrap up the public segment and go to the patrons.
Hey, well, you like this one a lot, right?
Yeah,
You
like
remember
them
what
all.
you thought about it, but
No.
no. Okay, well, again, it's this other movement into form. You see all the invaginations and the spirals, you know, coalescing into form.
It kind of looks like the Serpent Mound.
Yes, yes, very much so. And I've never been there, but it's supposed to be pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be interesting to understand all the structure that is under the ground where we see the serpent shape from the above, right? Like, but it would be interesting to see if something that looked like this is what is kind of underneath it, right?
Right. And this one and these two both have sort of like almost like cosmic kind of, you know, feel to them.
That's looks like a flowering plant. Yep, and the root system looks like grapes. All right. Okay, so let me go back here now and just see if there's anything else. And then this is a PDF that I will try to link to. It's hard to link to PDFs on YouTube, but it will definitely be on Patreon in the description. And this is his paper on the universality of sphere vortex principle and the alphabet of fluid geometries. So people could probably look that stuff up. And he gives basically a description of what he is doing in his work, right? And it's, you know, we listened to him for a couple of hours, and we were just barely starting to understand what he's talking about.
Right, Chris. Yeah, let Chris read just the first paragraph.
Where there's the visualization.
Sure. Go ahead.
He says the visualization of sound is one of the ancestral human dreams.
Yes.
Capturing the image of the aural ephemeral has been of great interest for scientific environments to this day. Almost everything in the universe is in a vibration state. Clarifying the hierarchy, the origin and co-substantiality of form with the natural language of algorithm grafted on phenomenal synergies, inextricably situates form as a result of stationary wave interference in conjunction with symbolic language induced references, inferences.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's complete. I mean, I think that paragraph just like sums up my love for closing my eyes and looking at what I'm watching while I'm dancing, right? Like it is this interface between language and things, symbols I recognize, and then the visualization of the physical process, you know, through the vibration of the music and the movement and whatever, and it comes together and creates these beautiful patterns.
Yeah.
Right? That are both artistic and meaningful.
Yes, well, that's yeah. You know, to sum up, really, that's the beauty of his work, is that he's been able to brilliantly, you know, cross the boundaries of science and art.
Yeah.
You
So
know, to back where it began, when they were unified.
yeah, I mean, you see that with a lot of the like old, not, and you know, with so many artists today, but like, you know, a lot of the artists back in the past were scientists or mathematicians or doctors or what, you know, like they did art, right? Like, didn't Leonardo da Vinci have like a lot of medical stuff into his
Oh,
things?
yeah.
Oh yeah, he dissected corpses.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, absolutely. All right. So this show was just kind of like, you know, we just wanted to share as we've gone through this sort of sacred geometry and alchemy sort of series, with lots of different iterations of it. When we came onto this gentleman's work, I just felt like he embodied all that which we have been speaking about. So I wanted to encourage people to go take a look at his stuff. A lot of it is, you know, you can go to his website and see a lot of stuff. There's things you can buy his art, you can buy prints, there's interesting things, but I really like this gentleman. If you guys can find something to listen to him, listen to of his, it's entertaining to listen to. Once you understand what he's talking about, he's kind of cute and charming in the way he speaks about things.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
anywho, we're going to move over into the patrons hour so we can look at some other stuff. So you can find that at patreon.com/offplanetmedia or at emilymoyer.locals.com. But before we go, Crimis, let people know where they can find you, how they can support you. You've got some new offerings, and I will bring those things up as you discuss, as you tell us about them. So go ahead.
Well, you've got Logo Sophia Books. You want to do
Right.
that
Well,
first?
we've got Logo Sophia Books. That's our publishing company. Also, and then we have two new offerings. One is a series of talks with our old yoga teacher, which is just deep, really traditional spirituality. That we've conversations with our friend Jean.
It's a deep dive.
It's a
So
deep
if you
dive.
really want to get to the nuggets and the
So hopefully Emily can put up those websites I sent.
We'll link to
It's
that
still-
in the
it's still a good
description
crack.
box,
you know,
right?
Sorry.
But here's the YouTube
Oh.
page. So guys,
Right,
go
so it's
over
still
and
a good crack.
subscribe.
Yeah, so we've got two shows up. We're hopefully doing another one tomorrow. And
Okay.
then Chris has a wonderful new venture, and I'll hold up.
I don't know if you can see it. Go up
Is it-
close to you got to go to the camera.
Okay, so
Okay.
anyway, this is Chris. Chris has got an art page, so we can talk about it.
So
What
this
do you
is
think?
Fine Art America, and it's kind of like an on-demand, you know how like in publishing, you can do on-demand books.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have an inventory. I put all my artwork up on this page, and then you can go to that page and you can either buy prints, they'll print on anything. They'll print on a shower curtain, a tote bag, an iPhone
go.
case, beach towels. It's like coffee cups, you know,
Okay,
that's what
so
Steve is holding up.
I'm
Yeah,
having trouble when I went
There you
there.
go. There you go.
When I went there last time, I was able to see like your own shirt. This is
No,
not
you
your
have to.
show.
Yeah,
All
you
right,
have to go to
hold
this.
on.
Yeah, you have to
All
go
right,
to
go
the
back.
side. So you go into shop where you have images underlined. Go to shop,
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
There we
Then
go.
yeah, just
And
go
then-
to like
and then under, for example,
home
Yeah.
decor.
yeah, where it says departments, under wall art, just under the search, hit that arrow.
Hmm.
Click-
Oh, I see.
Right there.
Departments. There we go.
Right.
There
Then
we
you can
go.
go to home decor.
There you
and
go.
You can get
Buy
blankets,
pillows.
throw pillows.
It
There we
totally
go.
cracked me up
That's
when I
right.
saw this. I was like, oh my God, look what you can do.
What's his name? The pillow guy?
I don't know.
Mike-
Mike Lindell.
Mike Lindell, eat your heart out. We got-
You can do phone. You can do
You could do
iPhone cases.
shower curtains. Show the
Yeah.
shower
Very good.
curtains. iPhone
Alright.
cases.
All right,
Isn't that
guys.
right?
Okay,
So
so
anyway,
you guys can now go over there and buy some of Chris's artwork and whatever.
Thank you
form
for walking through, how to get to the actual sales place. That's helpful.
Absolutely, and we'll link to that in the description. Okay, we will see you guys on the other side.